The rain had barely stopped when the last handful of earth was thrown onto the grave. Two small figures clutched each other's trembling hands, their matching black dresses soaked from both the storm and their tears. Emily and Grace, just 7 years old, stood alone at their father's funeral, watching as the coffin disappeared beneath the soil. Their father had been everything to them: protector, storyteller, the one who tucked them in at night with a kiss on each forehead. Now he was gone, and the world suddenly felt like a dark, endless winter. Beside them stood their stepmother, her face cold as stone. She had married their father only 2 years ago, but she never tried to hide her dislike for the twins. She never called them by name, only girls or you too. While the girls had longed for a mother's love, what they received instead was disdain and neglect. Still, as long as their father lived, they were safe. Now, standing in the cemetery with the crowd slowly dispersing, the twins could feel safety slipping through their tiny fingers. When the last of the mourners left, the stepmother's mask dropped completely. "It's over," she said sharply, her voice slicing through the damp air. "I have no obligation to keep you anymore." Emily's small chin quivered. "But where will we go?" she whispered, holding tighter to Grace. "You'll figure it out," the woman replied with a shrug, turning toward her car without a second glance. Within moments, she was gone, leaving 2 shivering girls standing by the fresh mound of dirt that now held their father. The twins didn't know what to do. Their shoes were muddy, their bellies empty, and their hearts breaking. They walked through the rain back to the only home they had ever known, only to find the doors locked and their belongings tossed onto the porch in plastic bags. A ragged teddy bear, a few clothes, and an old storybook were all that remained of their childhood. That night, they curled up on the porch together, huddling for warmth. Grace whispered, "Do you think Daddy can see us?" Emily nodded through tears. "He always said he'd never leave us alone. Maybe he sent angels." But as the hours dragged on and the night grew colder, there were no angels, only the howling wind. The next morning, as the twins sat on the porch, eyes swollen from crying, a car pulled up. It was sleek and black, the kind of car they had only seen in movies. From it stepped a tall man in his late 50s, his presence commanding yet gentle. He wore a tailored coat, but his eyes, piercing blue, were what caught their attention. There was a kindness in them, a softness that contrasted with his imposing stature. He paused when he saw the 2 girls, their tiny frames clinging together like lost birds. Something in his chest tightened. "What are you doing out here?" he asked softly. Emily wiped her eyes, trying to be brave. We don't have anywhere to go." The man glanced at the bags on the porch, the locked door, and the children's faces pale with hunger and grief. His jaw clenched. "Where's your mother?" "She left us," Grace whispered. "She said she didn't want us." For a long moment, the man stood in silence, fighting back a wave of memories. He had once lost someone too, his wife, years ago. And though his wealth had grown, his house had remained empty. No laughter, no warmth, just business, success, and silence. Now, looking at the twins, he felt a stirring he hadn't felt in years. Without another word, he crouched down and extended his hand. "Come with me. You don't belong out here." The twins hesitated. They had been taught not to trust strangers, but something about his voice reminded them of their father. Calm, steady, safe. Slowly, Emily reached out, then Grace, and their small hands slipped into his. He took them to his car, wrapping them in blankets from the back seat. For the first time since the funeral, the twins felt warmth. As the car drove away, they looked back at the only home they had known, now nothing more than a locked door. The man's name was William Carter, a millionaire, though the girls didn't know what that meant. He had built an empire in real estate, but he had always kept his personal life guarded. His mansion was vast, with chandeliers that sparkled and halls that echoed. Yet when the twins entered, their presence made the place feel alive. At first, they were timid. They ate quietly, spoke softly, and clung to each other. William noticed how they split even the smallest piece of bread in half, always making sure the other had enough. They had known scarcity, yet their instinct was to share. One evening, William walked past their room and found them kneeling beside their beds, hands clasped. He paused outside the door, listening. "Please, God," Grace whispered, "thank you for sending someone to help us. Please let him like us." Emily added, "We can be good, we promise. Just don't let him send us away." William pressed his hand against the wall, his throat tightening. In that moment, he realized something profound. They weren't asking for toys or riches. They just wanted love. Days turned into weeks. The girls slowly began to smile again. They laughed when William's big dog tried to chase its tail. They painted pictures that now hung on his refrigerator. One morning, Emily placed her teddy bear on William's desk. "He keeps us safe at night," she said, "but maybe you need him too." The gesture broke something open in William's heart. He had always believed his success was measured in wealth and property. But these little girls showed him a different truth. Kindness, connection, love. Those were the treasures money couldn't buy. The turning point came one afternoon when the stepmother returned. Greedy and calculating, she had discovered who had taken the twins. Standing at William's gate, she demanded money in exchange for custody rights. "They're mine," she insisted, "and I won't leave without something." William's calm demeanor hardened. "You abandoned them at a cemetery. You locked them out of their home. You forfeited any right to call yourself their guardian." The confrontation grew tense, but then Emily, clutching Grace's hand, stepped forward. Her voice was small yet unwavering. "We don't belong to her. We belong where love lives." Silence fell. Even the stepmother seemed stunned. William placed his hand protectively on their shoulders. "You heard her," he said firmly. "And now leave." And for the first time, the girls felt the safety of someone standing up for them, not just in words, but in action. From that day, everything changed. Papers were signed, arrangements made. William officially became their guardian, but more than that, he became their family. The mansion was no longer a hollow palace. It rang with the laughter of children. The twins had been cast out in their darkest hour, but through one man's compassion, they had found light again. And in giving them a home, William found something he hadn't known he was missing. 2 little hearts that taught him the true meaning of wealth. Spring came earlier that year, or at least it felt that way. The gray clouds that once seemed permanent above Emily and Grace's heads slowly gave way to blue skies and sunlight streaming through wide windows. The mansion, which had once been cold and quiet, now carried the scent of crayons, freshly baked cookies, and laughter that tumbled down every hallway. William sat on the porch one evening, watching the twins chase the golden retriever across the yard. Their giggles rose like music, weaving into the cool breeze. He realized how much life had changed in such a short time. He had been a man with everything: fortune, influence, recognition. Yet he had carried a hollow ache that no achievement could soothe. These 2 little girls had stepped into his life not by chance, but by something greater, something that felt almost divinely orchestrated. One Sunday, the girls wanted to visit their father's grave. William drove them himself, carrying fresh white lilies. Together they knelt by the stone marker, their small hands resting gently on the earth. Emily whispered, "Daddy, don't worry. We're okay now. Mr. Carter takes care of us." Grace added, "He makes us laugh, and we're not lonely anymore." William's throat tightened as he placed the flowers down. He didn't say much, but in his heart, he silently promised their father, "They'll never feel abandoned again, not as long as I live." Back home, the twins started school, and every afternoon they would burst through the door with stories to tell. They painted William pictures of their day, proudly hung their drawings on his office walls, and insisted on reading him bedtime stories even though their little voices stumbled over the big words. What surprised William most wasn't how much they needed him, it was how much he needed them. Their presence softened his world, taught him patience, and reminded him that life's greatest investments weren't in skyscrapers or stocks but in people. One evening, Grace curled up beside him on the couch, holding the teddy bear she had once offered him. She looked up at him with sleepy eyes and asked, "Are you our forever now?" William smiled, pulling both girls into his arms. Yes, he said firmly, forever and always. The girls sighed contentedly, snuggling close. The house no longer echoed with emptiness. It pulsed with warmth, with belonging, with the kind of love that heals broken hearts. And so, two little girls once cast out with nothing but each other had found not just shelter, but a family. And one man who thought he had it all discovered that the greatest wealth of all was tucked into the small arms that hugged him every night before bed.